Upper deckies.
Upper decky. Oh, whoa.
Oh, God. All right. Hey, welcome back to episode number 7 of the B-Main Bobbies podcast. I am Tanner Allen, and I'm here with fellow Bobby, Micaiah Heideball, and we dropped the ball again on trying to do this at the track. I had everything, all the equipment there, minus the computer. So we're the day after. So we made the trip to Makokata last night for their opening night of the weekly racing, and it was a good car count. I don't know what the total cars were last night for total entries, but we had 23 stock cars, and there were some pretty good cars there last night.
There's definitely some good cars there last night. I
Yeah.
mean, it was it was a weekly show, but no weekly hitters. We'll just put it that way.
No, it was a pretty tough crowd. There were some quality cars there, and it was overall pretty clean racing, really. I mean, the heat race wasn't too bad. The track was decent. I misjudged it big time.
I mean, I did too. I felt like it was. I mean, it looked hammered down from the trailer, but then you kind of see them throwing up dust, and you worry about all that wind. So I was like, well, might as well just stick with what I ran at Stewart, that Dirt Crown race, and I felt like I was definitely too loose in that feature, but I felt like there was enough moisture in the track that it would be fine. Well, I misjudged it too, and I should have tightened up a little bit more, but tried to make some headway through the middle and on the top in that heat, and it didn't work out. It was pretty much all on the bottom. Ended up second, and my stellar drawing skills drew me the 11th.
Yeah. Well, I thought I was going to have stellar drawing skills last night. I drew the 2 right away, so it put me on the pole for the first heat. I was like, sweet. But I was in the same situation. Track definitely looked like it had way more bite than it did. As soon as I pulled on the track, I was like, man, this sucks.
Out to lunch on this one.
Yep. And I ripped the top way too long. I probably should have dropped down sooner, but it's hard to tell when you're in the lead because you don't know where everybody else is running, so you're kind of just guessing. And then Justin Kai came up from, I don't know where he started. I think he started like 3rd or 4th, and he passed me on the bottom, and then I tried to get to the bottom, but I was too free to run the bottom. I couldn't get the drive off that the other guys were, and then we had a late race caution, and I lost another spot, so I ended up 3rd. Top 4 made the redraw, and of course my wonderful drawing skills came out. Reach in the bag and pull out the 10. I was like, oh, nice. Out of 12, I got 10. So, in typical Bobby's fashion, we have to start right next to each other.
Start deep
in the field, but no, when the sun went down and the temp started dropping, I thought maybe it'd help a little bit, but the wind picked up and really dried that place out. It never really cleaned off, and ended up being kind of a 1-lane freight train on the bottom. But the Bobbies decided to go up one groove, and we passed a lot of cars.
Yeah. I think you went, +8?
+8.
+7. You ended up 2nd. I ended up 4th. And I just felt like I wasn't going to – you got to go where they're not. And playing bumper cars down on the bottom, you'd get in the corner, someone would hit the brakes in front of you, and then it kind of, when you hit the brakes, you get tight, and it just ruins your whole corner. And that you're going to have that on those 1-lane tracks on the bottom. So I felt like at least try the middle, one lane up off the bottom, right above those cars, and it started biting through the middle, and passing cars. I just kept picking them off, and sooner or later, towards the end of the race, it did fall off. And the middle did go away. But other than that, it wasn't rough. It was smooth. It's just one of those nights where the weather did play a factor into it, and there was really nothing they could do.
No. And that's just what it is. Those 1-lane tracks, I mean, you got 2 options. You either go where they're not or you run right through them. And that's not my thing.
Nope.
I'm not gonna blade everybody to try and improve position, especially at a weekly night. That's just dumb.
No, we're there to definitely find our setup and our groove for those dirt crown races. We're there to have fun, and it really takes the pressure off you just running those weekly nights, just to get your car dialed in for those big shows and make sure everything's all right. You can find setup, try new things, and I know I definitely tried some new stuff for the feature. I changed the shock and spacer, and that was that. It definitely, the car was way better than Stewart the other night. I wish there was definitely more lanes to run last night, because I feel like it could have been a different result. I feel like we could have fanned out and definitely passed a few more cars.
Yep.
But I mean, you take what the track gives you and your car gives you, and you load it up with minor damage, cosmetic damage. But for a 1-lane track, that you can't really complain about that.
No. And there's a lot of times on them 1-lane tracks like that, it can get pretty rough and a lot of stuff can get tore up. But like for me, this is the first feature I ran in like 3 weeks, probably. The big shows, I haven't made a feature yet. And granted, there was no B-mains or nothing last night, so everybody started. But the quality of cars that were there to be able to go +8 on a 1-lane track with some heavy hitters, that definitely helps my confidence going into the Dirt Crown next week, because it's been a rough start for me for this year. So we tried some new things too, and it definitely made it better. Like you said, it would have been nice to have a few more lanes to really try out a couple different things, but for what it was, can't complain. I mean, being able to pass on move that many spots on a 1-lane track, that's saying something. So,
Definitely. And Spencer, that's our next stop for the Bobbies tour. I know you're going Tuesday, Wednesday. I'm just going Wednesday for the Dirt Crown. But we'll definitely see what we got there. There's definitely going to be some heavy hitters, because it's a Dirt Crown race, and I mean, it pays pretty good. So we'll see what we got. Definitely going to try to make the feature again and get those valuable points to lead to Knoxville. But we'll see what we got. I know it was definitely a confidence booster for you. It was good to definitely pass that many cars on a 1-lane track.
Yeah.
And to run with the quality of cars.
Sorry about that.
Sorry, incoming call. But to run with the quality of cars that were there, it definitely shows that we can run with anybody. And this stock car class is unreal. I mean, there any given night at these Dirt Crown races, 30 of them can win the race. You don't know who's going to win it that night. It's just that's how crazy the stock car class is. So I'm hoping we both definitely make the feature on Wednesday, and we can keep this momentum rolling throughout this Dirt Crown season, and we'll see what we got.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the thing. Like, even the weekly shows anymore, it's hard to not go to a weekly race and not have some hammers there. I mean, this class has just exploded with talent lately, and the quality of cars keeps getting better. I mean, 23 cars last night. There was probably, I don't know, a dozen or more cars that had a chance of winning. I mean, it's crazy. That's you don't find that too often in too many classes. So, but overall, it was nice, especially for both of us to get a top 5 together. That was pretty cool for how deep we had to start. Can't complain too much.
Just wish you could have got that one spot better.
Yeah, I know. It just sucks. By the time I finally got up there, the track was pretty much gone.
Yeah, you either have to just root them off the bottom, and I know I don't like to race like that. I'd rather try to pass for the win clean than absolutely drive through somebody to get them off the bottom. But what do you do, right? I think that's our first top 5 ever since starting this B-Main Bobbies deal. On Wednesday at Stewart, I was the fortunate one to make the show. Tanner had some pretty bad luck.
Yeah.
But But other than that, it was a solid night at Stewart, I will say. I didn't have any damage, loaded the car up, made the show, got valuable points. And it was the same deal there. Pretty one lane on the bottom. The top was not the place to be. I was way too free towards the end of the race. And I kind of keep kicking my ass for it because we went and watched the track and we're like, man, this thing is not going to dry out. But running a 30 lap sport mod feature before you, it's going to probably dry out pretty quick.
Yep. Well, and like for Stewart, for me, I mean, it was pretty much over before it even started. I went out, I started third, I believe, in the heat race. And on the first lap, I cut a right rear tire down. And at that point, you can't just jump off the track because as much chaos as there was in that heat race, because points are important, and especially in a big show like that. And I just kind of was the sit and duck, just kind of getting pinballed until I could finally get off the track safely. And it just sucks because that's been our big focus this year is the Dirt Crown and the first points night of the series. And I probably didn't get hardly any points. Granted, in the B main, I did pass 6 cars, so I probably got some position points for that, but I mean, it's not good points. So I'm kind of in a hole to start, but hopefully going into Spencer, we have a little bit better turnaround. And this will only be my second time ever being to Spencer. So
this will be my second too. I watch it all the time. It's definitely a fun track. When it gets 2 lanes, it's a blast. But I've also seen it where when it's hammered down, it's not so fun. So I'm hoping the weather cooperates this week and we can get a good track for a Dirt Crown race. And I know those guys are working hard to try to give us put on the best show we can because, gosh, who doesn't like watching stock cars?
Yeah, and it's just as fun on the track as it is from the stands. But, I mean, Mother Nature has not been in our favor. The Dirt Crown Series, they're having a hell of a time getting started, for the east side anyways. I think the west side.
They run tonight, too, at Dawson County, I believe.
Yes. And the weather here in Iowa just hasn't been good. They canceled Jefferson last Sunday, and then they canceled Spencer last Monday. And they moved everything back to this coming week. So hopefully we'll see. And I was kind of hoping last night at Maquoketa too, since they didn't get near the rain that we did all week. I was kind of hoping that the track would have worked out to where we had multiple lanes. But when that wind picked up, I mean, there's not much you can do then.
No, there's not. And I was amazed that wind really made a factor on how crummy the track was. But I know Maquoketa is that sandy for surface, and that's kind of all it is. It gets crummy and dusty, and there's just not enough cars there to blow it off. And it would have been nice if the late models could have went early in the night, but I get it. That's how they run them. What do you do?
Yeah. I was a little surprised that they ran the Legends last night for 20 laps. And they only gave us 15.
Yeah, well, I think the Legends also only made a total of 10 laps.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I don't know what they had going on, but there was a lot of cautions. They had enough cautions to where they started taking laps away. So, but overall, just nice to have a good night finally. I mean, I know it's only May, but I looked at Race Pass last night. I've been to 9 events, and I've only made 5 features. So,
yeah, that'll definitely hurt your confidence.
Yeah.
You need those runs where you pass cars and you finish in the top 5, and you're like, man, I had a car to win the night, and it just boosts your confidence to a fucking sky high. And that for both of us, even I was happy with how I finished.
Mm-hmm.
I was definitely happy with where you finished. It would have just been nice if we could have got that one spot better for the Bobbies.
Yeah.
But we definitely showed last night that we do have 2 good cars and we can compete in these Dirt Crowns because they're tough. They're very tough.
Very tough.
We went to the King of the High Banks and we were just laughing because of how gnarly our heat races were.
Yeah, I mean
And
there was not a single heat race, B main, you name it. There was not a single one that was not absolutely loaded.
we just kept laughing because it was like, man, none of the slow guys showed up. It was all fast guys, and that's how it is for these dirt crowns. Stewart was the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Just because not only it was close, but this dirt crown is definitely intriguing. You love to run against the best. That's what makes you better. And I know I like running against the best. It's definitely
Mm-hmm.
going to make me a better driver too.
Right. Well, and that's what made last night such a good night is because we had such quality cars there. Like if it was just a regular weekly night, I mean, we'll take a top 5 anywhere, but when you can get a top 5 with good cars like that, it just helps everything. It lets you know where you stack up compared to good cars because that's what we have to look forward to. And I mean, you take last night and take that times like 4, and that's what these dirt crown races are. So.
That is it's unreal. I mean, I know heck, all your normal dirt crown guys will show up. Your weekly guys at Spencer will show up, and their weekly guys that show up are unreal too. You got Shyrock, you got I bet Fett will be there, Jake Masters, Brands, all of them. You name them, they can win on any given night.
Yep.
And that's how this dirt crown is. But we like it. We're definitely hoping for a good run and get those valuable points we need. I know for you need those points.
I need a lot of points right now. So, but no, we'll see what happens. I definitely know we're doing things different this go around at Spencer. I know we're definitely changing gears because
God,
we both ran the same gear last year, and man, I felt like I could have got out and ran faster. So
yeah, that was bad, and I was down on power. My motor was laying down on me, and I actually had a bent rear end too. Found that out after that whole Salute to Veterans tour. I pulled the rear end out, and she was bent 1/4 inch, and that's a lot in these things.
Oh yeah,
that 1/4 inch can make a big difference. We got that straight in there at BHE, and all of a sudden we changed the whole setup, put a fresh motor in it. It's like woke the car up. And that's what you got to do too. Last night I was talking to Dad, and he was like, "Well, you're at these weekly races to try stuff and go with what you think. Watch the track," and that's why I made the adjustments I did, and it definitely worked. So I'm hoping we can translate this setup to Wednesday, and it is another good result for us.
Yeah. Well, and I'm also glad we just put our new engine in for Stewart. And since I had such bad luck, I made like 3 laps of the heat race and then the 12-lap B main. So, I mean, I only had like 15 laps, including a couple in hot laps, but the track was so greasy in hot laps, you really didn't get a good feel for it. So we finally got a full night of racing hard on it so we can get the break-in oil out, get fresh oil in it, and go from there. And I was actually able to get a pretty good feel of what we had with it last night too, because Stewart's a little bull ring, so it's really hard to get your cars wound up on a little bull ring, especially if it's one lane. And last night in the heat race, at least, since I was able to run the top for a while, I was able to open it up and see what we got. So I feel good about that. And obviously we made really good adjustments for the feature. So definitely just in a lot better headspace going into Spencer. And again, hopefully we just get a break in the weather because I'm sick of all the rain.
Yeah, no, Spencer's one of those tracks. It's weird. It's like an intermediate, but kind of races like a half mile. I mean, you're always on the gas, and you're trying to keep your momentum up around that place. And momentum's key, especially in these stock cars. Your momentum's key.
Mm-hmm.
If you can learn to keep your momentum up, it's night and day difference. And I'm still learning at these tracks. Spencer, obviously, this will be my second time there, and a lot can happen. They got a wall in turn 3 and 4, and no wall in 1 and 2. It's one of those. The track changes 24/7. It could be around the top in your heat race, and next thing you know, you're around the bottom for your feature, black slick rubber duck.
Yep.
But
Well, and that's the thing, like with the momentum in this class anymore, it's even more important now than probably ever because this new ride height rule change that everybody, I know we sound like a broken record talking about it, but it's made a huge difference. I mean, it is,
even that playing field.
yeah, I mean, it's bunched everybody up. And like I keep telling people, you make one mistake now and it's 3-4 spots, where before, if you bob it a little bit, you maybe lost a spot.
If that.
If that. Sometimes you could bobble and there was still enough variance to where you could be all right. But now everybody keeps them so wound up and you make one mistake and I mean it's like throwing the anchor out and you just
and then you're fighting for your life at that point.
Especially if it's a 1-lane track, which we've had a lot lately. You get rooted off the bottom when it's 1 lane on the bottom. I mean, you're just kind of hung out to dry.
And especially if there is no middle too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was fortunate enough we had a middle last night.
Right.
But can you imagine if it was straight around the tires? I would have been screwed.
It would have been wherever you could have tucked in line on the bottom is where you would have been.
And just followed the leader.
Yep. Well, and there's a lot of people when it gets 1 lane like that, they get too afraid to try anything. And obviously, if it's 1 lane, it's 1 lane. Sometimes that's all you got, but you got to try something to try and progress. Otherwise, it's no fun when you're just kind of out there just riding around and playing bumper cars and nobody's passing. So it's part of it.
No, Dad's always told me, don't follow the leader, try some, go where they're not. And I've been really trying to make that a point this year, just trying to go where they're not. Because, gosh, you never know. You might find that needle in a haystack somewhere and hit that line where nobody had been running. And next thing you know, you're passing the whole field.
Yeah. Well, and that's something that I'm definitely working on getting better at this year too. I did that way too much last year where I would follow them way too long when I probably 3 or 4 laps sooner. If I would have moved, I probably could have got by him. So, but it's all part of just learning the craft and getting better at it, especially now since everybody's so good. You have no choice but to get better. I mean, that's where we're at now. You have no choice but to get better.
And you gotta get in your notebook too. I mean, you gotta follow these other guys that have twice the laps we do. You gotta watch and study what they do. It's just like no different than sports. You gotta study that film. You gotta watch what lines they're running and how they're running those. And obviously, we all drive different. We all have different driving styles, so what they're doing might not work for you. But still, you can watch a driver and pinpoint what he's doing, where he's trail braking, where he's entering the corner, how he's entering it, and enforce it into your program. And next thing you know, if you use it, utilize it, it might work for you.
Mm-hmm.
And it just goes back to we all drive different. So you got to figure out how the track and adapt to the track with your driving style, and hopefully it works. Sometimes it doesn't. Like you said, if you try something and it doesn't work, at least you tried it. At least you're not beating your ass for it after the race. Like, man, that line really worked for the last 3 laps I tried, and I wish I would have went to it sooner.
Yep.
Then you're like, gosh, I had the car to win tonight if I would have went there sooner. But what do you do? It's give and take in this class and this sport, and the sport is very humbling.
Yeah.
And but in the end, if you try something and it doesn't work, you put it in your notebook and you go, well, hey, we tried this here. Don't go back to that. And tweak your setup off your notebook, and don't listen to so many people. Just stay in your notebook and go off that. That's really kind of all I have to say to that.
Yeah. Well, and that's why it's nice having the GoPros and stuff now too. Obviously, we use it for content. That's a big thing, but it's also nice to be able to go back and watch the race over again and see. I always like it because I like to see specific moments to see if it actually played out the way that I remember it did, or if it was completely different, because stuff happens so damn fast that sometimes you have to go back and rewatch it to know exactly what happened. And it's a good learning tool. Being able to have that driver's point of view again, just to see, because there's a lot of things you pick up that you never even noticed when you were racing.
Ooh.
Like there's times that you can see guys that are way up top. Like there's a couple times last night, there was guys that were ripping the top when there was nothing up there. And when you're running the bottom, sometimes you don't even know they're up there.
No, it's just like NASCAR. I mean, heck, the big talk now is the aero block. Heck, guys are changing their lanes when they know somebody's running up there and they block the air. It's no different in dirt racing. There's dirty air.
Oh, yeah.
And when you get in that dirty air, your car is just not going to work as good. And that's where it goes back to trying stuff different. Try to get out of that dirty air and try to do something different, because it might work. Obviously, we don't have mirrors and can mirror block like NASCAR's been talking about lately, but it's crazy how much NASCAR and dirt racing, a lot of these NASCAR guys are running dirt, and they're saying how dirt has actually helped them in the NASCAR world. Like, they run the top now. Back in the day, you wouldn't see a NASCAR driver ripping the fence on pavement. Right. It'd be straight around the bottom,
right?
And that's it. They get off the bottom and they're screwed.
Well, and the other thing about dirt racing is our races obviously are considerably shorter.
Oh, 100%.
So you have way less time to figure out where your car is gonna work and how much time you have to actually pass people and get to the front. I mean, like a weekly race is 15 to 20 laps. Obviously, the Dirt Crown stuff is like 30
35.
30 to 35. And then everyone's going to get thrown through a loop if you are fortunate enough to make the show at the Yankee this year, and it's a 100-lapper.
100-lapper.
I mean, not very many guys have ever ran 100 laps. I've never raced more than 50, ever.
Yeah, I ran 50 at Stewart, and I will say racing 50 at a bull ring like that, it's a lot of work.
Yeah,
I feel like if you run 100 laps or 50 laps on a half mile, I feel like you're not working as much. But then again, you're also trying to save your equipment. Yeah. You got to save your tires. These Hoosiers, if they get hot and cold, or get extremely hot, you're done. The minute they seal over, get so hot and seal over, you might as well just throw in the towel, because you're out to lunch.
Yep, and that's why it's so important, like under cautions, that you don't want to scrub your tires too much, but you got to keep scrubbing them, because you got to keep the heat in them, because it's a real fine line. You don't want them to completely cool off, because if they cool off, it's about as bad as if they seal over. I mean, it takes forever to get that heat back in them. And by the time you get the heat back in them, especially now, the way the class is now, I mean, you're going to, right on the restart, you're going to fall back 5, 6, 7 spots. And by the time your tires heat back up, everyone's already gone.
Yeah. I know people run that foam mud cover behind an actual hardened mud cover. And they say that foam traps heat in that rim from the brake heat. And it traps that heat in and heats that right rear tire up a lot and keeps that heat in that tire. Because I know last year, before I was using just normal grinding disc, and then I went to that copper disc after Johnny told me to, as he said, you got to rough these tires up. They're plastic now. You got to open them up and create that heat, but also you got to keep them cool. You want that cool factor in them, because if they do get so hot, you're done, and you'll blister that tire, you'll chunk it out. And I know I struggled last year. Heck, I went to Deer Creek for a big USRA show and started 14th and was running the middle. And the next thing I know, in 3 laps, I'm up to 5th. And we had a red flag, and just sitting there, my tire sealed over. After that, I went straight backwards. And it was just like, wow, it's crazy how these tires, and American racers they say they're almost even better than Hoosiers, and they still sealed over. It's just, you got, like Tanner said, you gotta scrub them. You got to keep hitting the gas, kind of spinning the tires, get that glaze off, and keep that heat in there.
Yep, and like even when I was racing midgets, it was really weird how temperamental those tires were too, because they're a lot softer compound than what we run. But it was the same deal. And granted, in the open wheel stuff, you can run bleeders, so that helps. But it's a big thing. Like under cautions, you'll see those guys, they'll go down like where all the sticky mud and stuff is to get them to cool back down, because those, they heat up way faster since they're so much softer. So it's a fine line. It takes a lot of laps to learn how to manage these tires.
And two, it goes back to last night on that crummy track. Tires really aren't going to heat up much, but those crummy tracks are like raced on dry slick. You got to tighten your car up quite a bit just to hook up in that crumb. And I know I've fought for the last 2-3 years on. I've never been very good in the crumb. I've always struggled, and more I race on them. I've been learning how to. Oh yeah, I need to tighten my car up for this. It's not. You would think that crumb it have moisture, but no, it's literally marbles. It's literally marbles. So you have to adjust your car to race on like you're racing gravel.
Yeah.
And these tires, it's not like the Lucas Oil late models or World of Outlaws. They have different compounds to choose from. And I can't even imagine if we had a softer compound or a harder compound to choose from. That would throw another curveball on your setup. It's well, do you want to run a softer compound on the right rear and hopefully she holds up, or do you want to run a harder one and risk it sealing over? But those guys also run 100 laps, 50 laps every week, where, I mean, if you race these 15-lap features, it's not going to make a difference.
Right.
But I like you said, I've never raced anything over 50 laps. So that's going to be a learning curve if I do end up getting fortunate enough to make the show. Just saving your equipment, but not – you want to keep your pace up. It's not like you want to just drop to the back and ride around, because if you go a lap down, you're screwed.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're not going to get that lap back.
No.
Especially now with how close everything is. It's just, I don't know. I hope we're both fortunate enough to make that show so we can at least get the experience to know what it's like to manage for that long. I mean, even a 50-lap race, there's some management involved in that too. And it just, like I said, it's a fine line of getting too aggressive with it under caution laps, or even when you're racing. If you get a long green flag run, you don't want to be trying to set qualifying laps, because you're going to burn your shit up and then you're done.
Then you're done. Because, yeah, you might take the lead in lap 10, and you think, oh, my gosh, I have a car to win. But then it's also those guys being like, man, just let you go, be stupid, burn your stuff up.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, they're blowing your doors back off.
Yep.
I know last night my tires were equal temperature, which my car was balanced. That's what you want. My right rear wasn't hotter than the left. It was definitely, and they weren't even hot. They were pretty cool. So for being latched down on the bottom and us running in the crumb, I felt like I was pretty good on the throttle. I wasn't spinning the tires. I wasn't. My car was pretty hooked up last night. And I was happy with it.
Yeah, same here. I mean, and obviously going through traffic when you're trying to get to the front, it's easy to not use your stuff up. And thankfully the track had kind of went away by the time I got up there, because even if the track would have stayed good, I don't know how much I would have had left, because you had to get aggressive. You had 15 laps to try and get to the front from starting deep. So you have no choice but to get on the wheel and go. So overall, really good night for both of us. Really excited to go to Spencer. As of now, knock on wood, the weather looks good. So we'll see what happens. Just really hoping to have a better points night, because I'm in a hole and I need it bad.
Yeah, I just got to maintain and hope for another good run. And keep building my points up, because you never know. You could have a night like you had at Stewart, where everything just hits the fan.
Yeah.
And it just, felt like that night you couldn't do anything right.
No, it really couldn't. And even in the B main that night, right off the start, a guy spun out all on his own and it stacked us all up. And there was like 3 of us involved in that. Granted, we didn't stop or nothing, but it was enough where the rest of the pack had already started to stretch out. So, I mean, I was in the hole from the green flag and it was 1 lane on the top. So,
Oh yeah, that was definitely not the Stewart track you like to see. Mike does a good job, and not bashing Mike at all. Trust me, but that Stewart track just wasn't like the Stewart tracks we've raced on before. Usually he gets that place killer, and it's 1 lane on the top and 1 lane on the bottom, and some people in the middle trying to make it work. Three lanes of racing around a little bull ring is hard to come by, and Mike does a good job at getting there. And I know he's been working with Trent at Spencer, and I know Trent does a good job with there. And I hope we can have another multiple groove track there at Spencer, because, gosh, now we're getting on a kind of a bigger track where we can spread out and actually try different lines. Where at Stewart, everything happens so fast at those little bull rings, and like you said, you make one mistake and you're getting passed by 3 cars, especially at those races. And spots are key in these dirt crown races. You could be running 10th and you might be upset with where you're running, but just give what the track and your car will give you, and just realize you're getting points for running 10th and better than the DNF.
Yep. That's the thing. You got to at least finish. You got to make the show and you got to at least finish, because points are crucial. Because I don't know how many, I'm sure a lot of people that are running the series are all wanting to try and make it to Knoxville. I know that's a huge goal for both of us, is to try and get to Knoxville. So, I mean, we have no choice but to try and get every point we can possibly get. So, but, well, I know you guys got a long trip home yet, and we're not going to bore you too much, but one of these days, hopefully up in Spencer, we'll have all the equipment so we can do a podcast fresh off the track. I know we tried one earlier this year and it didn't turn out very good. So we will get there, but we're going to try and keep the content rolling, and on to Spencer. We'll see what happens.
Yes, sir.
So thank you guys again for watching. We appreciate all the support. I know our following's starting to grow on all platforms. I know a lot of the videos are getting some good traction because we have some pretty comical content. Our candid shots from the pits or something else.
Also, the shirts are in the works now. We're getting all the sizes lined up and should be in printing later, hopefully this week, and we should have them soon. So if you're ever at a track and you see them hanging on our trailer, one of our trailers, stop by, please, because those shirt sales are definitely to help our programs out. It's not just, oh, hey, we're just selling shirts to sell shirts. We're actually trying to make this brand grow, and I know we want to thank all the followers and everybody that has watched our stuff and liked our page. But I wanted to say that we're working on those shirts. So stop by, buy one, buy 2. Anything's appreciated. We're also going to be working on some hats too. I know I've been in the works of trying to get some more hats lined up. So, but want to thank you guys.
Yep. It's all a work in progress. I know it's still early in the year, but we're already gaining traction. I mean, people are always giving us a hard time everywhere we go. They're like, "Oh, the B-Main Bobbies are here."
Yep.
But that's the goal with it. We want to make a full-on brand out of the deal. I feel like it's off to a pretty good start. But again, thank you guys for everything. Make sure you follow us on all social media platforms at B-Main Bobbies. Like and subscribe here on YouTube, and we will see you guys at Spencer.